Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I am your host, Mary Katharine Ham, and I'm here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. We are your morning show for any hour, moderately right and moderately reliable. That's the best we can offer you, but we feel like that's pretty good. We got a lot of news today. We want to talk a little bit about the astronauts coming home, the celebration that followed, although not for everybody. We want to talk about Schumer going on The View. Good stuff there. That's where you want to do cleanup. If you mess up, you want to go to The View. A court update for the Trump administration and the many, many court appeals and motions and machinations happening. A Ukraine update and some salacious Harry Sisson news. One of Biden's influencers has got himself in a little bit of trouble. So we'll get to that gossip. That hot goss later. But before that, how's it going, Vic?
Hello, Mary Katharine. Doing well. When I walked into our studio, you asked me, am I dressed up in a new outfit yet again? Yes, this is one of the two things I bought when I was at the mall. One was the jeans. Thank you, everybody, for your input. And the second one was a pair of pants, a new pair of pants, and a shirt that's better fitting than my billowy shirts, because my concern was, of course, the neck size. But if they assume that if I have a 17 and a half neck, they're going to assume I'm a giant. Yeah. And of course, I'm not really. So I found something.
This is a problem that's just like too fit for your own good, Vic, you know?
Right. If only I had a smaller head. I don't know how to shrink that. But so this is the outfit. But the reason why I'm wearing it is because today is the first day of spring. Oh. This is my spring linen.
Well, it's very
look
nice.
at this. There you go. You have to see this on video.
Are those linen?
I think so.
Look at you.
I think so.
I love it.
Wait till we get to the summer solstice, and I'll be wearing my Ocean Pacific shorts and my Billabong tank top.
I had an Ocean Pacific t-shirt when I was about 4 years old. That was my favorite.
That explains I would have been like 12 or 13 or something.
It was a yellow t-shirt and it had Ocean Pacific written across the front with the wave. It was very cool. Even when I was 4, I knew it was cool.
I don't know what happened to that brand because it was everywhere, and I had Ocean Pacific shorts, Ocean OP shirts, you name it, and now it's gone. But I was thinking about this, Mary Katharine, which is, you may recall this, even though you only partook once, and that's already a hint. How did I usually celebrate the spring solstice, the spring equinox?
Oh.
Do you know?
I don't know. I assume we went out to a nice restaurant and drank at
Very
lunchtime.
Close. A bar crawl.
Okay.
The spring bar crawl.
Oh, that's right. I did go to one of those.
You did go to one of those. I think you went to the one in 2009. I was thinking about this. The bar crawl began, it went from 2004 or 5 to 2009, and it was 2 co-founders, myself and Matt Continetti.
Yes.
And by the time, there are rules, right? First of all, it was usually, when we worked at the Weekly Standard, you had 48 issues a year, so you had 4 weeks off. One of those weeks happened to be Easter time. Okay. So if I happened to be just in town or before I went traveling, you would pick a weekday because that's always the best time to do it. You're not going at night.
You're not competing with everyone else.
Yeah, and it's not a night bar crawl. It's you start around a little afternoon, maybe get some sustenance first, right? Okay. And there was, first of all, drink responsibly. Nobody is driving. We're all walking. The second thing is you had to pick a street, any road, boulevard, avenue. And the rule was you start somewhere and you just go forward. And anywhere that had a liquor license, so not just beer and wine, it had to have a liquor license, you had to go in and get one drink. That's the rule. And so Connecticut Avenue, F Street, which is interesting, Pennsylvania Avenue. The one you joined us on was Shirlington, which sounds absurd for anybody in the Virginia, D.C. area. It's like a village.
Yes.
It's like an Epcot for adults, really. And there's like, I don't know, 8, 9 restaurants per block, but it's like 2 blocks. And everybody says, well, we'll be done, in like half an hour because there's only 2 blocks worth, except for there's that many restaurants and bars with licenses along the way. So by the time you turn the corner, everybody's staggering. You were there. I was there. Continetti. A few other people.
I have vague memories of a Mexican restaurant. I don't.
Sonny Bunch. Aaron McLean of the School of War podcast, and other people who will remain nameless. Yeah. But it was a happy, lively group. And I just want to say, it's a shame we can't do it now. I could get through maybe 2 bars now.
Well, and also Matthew Continetti, it must be said, has surpassed both of us in seriousness.
Oh, yeah.
And we can't be dragging him down to our level.
And I'm sure he'll issue a statement denying this ever happened. So
we can't drag him down to our level,
No, that's right.
We can invite him to partake, but he can no longer.
He might make an appearance and say, "Never
event.
mention I was ever here." Mary Katharine, how are you?
I am pretty good. Nothing much going on. I too have a new outfit on.
You do, and I was going to make a comment, but I might save it for later. A good one. I was going to make a good comment.
Today, for those of you who are not watching on the YouTube, I am
tune in.
Dressed like Tweety Bird dressed like Crisscross. Do you remember
Crisscross?
You remember the 90s?
Yes, that's a 90s reference.
The 90s backward hatted Crisscross rap Looney Tunes. That's what I'm dressed as today.
That's right.
I found this at the Goodwill, and it is my kids love it because my
very
toddler,
vintage.
My toddler was like, red, green, blue, yellow, right?
Oh.
She knew all the colors.
Yes.
But it is all of those colors that I just mentioned, very bright. And then I have my my original Jordans on.
Can I say something now?
Yes.
Because we might not get to this topic till our next episode. You reminded me of Snow White. She has a red hood. Well, I'd be like Little Red Riding Hood, but really Snow White.
Right.
And you just need to check it out on YouTube.
With the primary
colors? Kind of. And there's black. Snow White had black. And the black pants.
In the 90s, they would have done a reboot of Snow White that looked like this.
Yes, no, she's like the Snow White of our times, really. Okay. That's right. Steve is the huntsman.
I got this sweatshirt, and it's a large, but it fits me nicely. I think it fits like kind of more like a medium, but I got it for Steve, and then I immediately saw, I like it, I'm just going to put it on. So I put it on, then I informed Steve that I had gotten it for him, the present that I was currently wearing, and he's like, I think that's more your style than mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree with him.
Yeah.
I'd agree with him.
He's like, I'm really more of a neutrals, hide in the woods.
Yes.
With a high-powered firearm kind of color.
Flannels and denim. That's how he rolls.
Fair enough. If he doesn't want to visit 1992 with me, that's fine. But I am living in 1992, even though I am a grown, way past 40 lady. Okay.
It was a great time for us.
It was a great time. Alrighty. So let's do some Tweety Bird news.
Let's do it.
All right. Did you watch the Splashdown?
Okay. I didn't watch it live.
Okay.
But when I did see the video of it, at first I thought it was some sort of a CGI recreated thing because it looked the clarity of the video itself.
Yes.
Was very clear, and the way it's approaching the capsule, it seemed like you ever see the Mars demonstrations about how it's going to land. It's not actually Mars, but you see what's going to go on with the rover and stuff like that when it lands.
Are you saying it looked like Kubrick filmed it?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And did it really happen? So it looked amazing. And then, of course, people mentioned dolphins, and I didn't believe that either until I saw it. And I thought to myself, what is happening here?
So I didn't watch the Splashdown, and this is the stranded American astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, coming home from the International Space Station, where they were stuck for about 9 months. They should have been there for 8 days. They got stuck up there. We'll discuss that in a minute. But SpaceX had said, the Boeing Starliner that took you up there malfunctioned. They had to send that back to Earth without the astronauts in it. Elon says, we got SpaceX stuff that can go up with a crew, leave 2 seats for these guys and bring them back home. So that's what they did. They brought them back home a couple of days ago. And I didn't watch it live, and I regret it. I missed the actual Splashdown. I didn't watch it live because I am inherently very nervous about space travel stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because I am a Challenger kid.
No, we could talk about it more. We kind of hinted at it at the last episode, but we can talk about it more comfortably now that they're on the ground.
Yes. No, because I almost regretted talking about it before it happened because it just made me so nervous.
It was in the back of my head. I thought, I don't know about this.
They're safely home, but I was too nervous to watch it while this was still in doubt. Then I saw the video later of the actual Splashdown, and the white parachutes with the red markings into the blue sea, the Gulf of America.
So they follow. Yes, so they must follow. Obviously, there's a window of where they can go in, so they don't bounce or whatever, right. And they get through. And they must have it planned very carefully so that it lands there versus somewhere in the Indian Ocean.
Right. And it just like touches down so beautifully.
Yeah, in the Gulf of America.
In the Gulf of America. It looks gorgeous. Everybody's safe. We're all cheering. I do think this is one of those things that if it were 20 years ago, every child in every schoolroom would have been watching that happen live.
Like Apollo 13.
Yeah, like everybody would have been watching it. Unfortunately, we might have destroyed that tradition with Challenger because that's where I get my childhood space trauma is I watched that.
Wow.
And then the reason that for a long time I thought it was a false memory because I figured
Reagan
People
must talk about it a lot.
Well, Reagan must have given a primetime address is what I thought. Mm-hmm. But I remembered him giving that address. I was very young. I was in kindergarten. But I remembered him giving that address. And for a long time, I thought that must not be right because my memory is I was in after school care, which wouldn't have been primetime. It would have been earlier. I looked it up years later, and it's not a false memory. Reagan addressed the nation early because so many children had seen the disaster that he wanted the children to hear his speech.
There were a lot
so they did it before bedtime.
There were a lot of kids who had the day off. I did, and I remember this. I was in 7th grade, and I happened to just turn it on, not live, but you were staring at a screen that showed the after explosion, and they're still trying to figure out what had happened. And then we went to Pizza Hut. That's what I mean,
of all the places you could find to comfort you, that is not a bad one.
Yes. No. And the other I remember there was a lot of talk about O-rings and that at the end, I think Morton Thiokol got blamed for that, which is weird because it's a rocket company, but it's also the same Morton as the salt.
Is it really?
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
It's just like Michelin stars.
Yeah, I know. Weird. Very weird.
Yeah,
anyway, they want you to travel there with the tires. Okay. Sorry.
So I have some leftover feelings from that make me nervous.
Apprehension.
Yes. And so I watched the Splashdown later, but I did watch them once they were down. I was watching them sort of extract the pod and get it ready. And yes, indeed, there is a person who I assume works for SpaceX on sort of positioning the pod and putting harnesses on it and straps on it so it can be pulled on the recovery ship. The recovery ship is coming closer and closer to the pod. Had I not seen it live, I would have thought it was AI.
Right. Same.
A pod of dolphins shows up, Lisa Frank style, like, hey, what's up? With big smiles on their faces, circling the crew as if to welcome them home.
Right now, I'm typing in who is Lisa Frank.
Oh my gosh, that's a continuation of my '90s vibe today.
Okay,
Lisa Frank was an artist, very popular with young schoolgirls in 1992, aroundabouts. And every notebook cover of any girl of that age was neon, ocean, dolphins, pandas, all the cute.
And it was her.
She drew these things, and they were like psychedelic neon dreamscapes. And so when I saw the dolphins smile and come up out of the water to say hey to the beautiful spacecraft, I thought this is a Lisa Frank artwork come to life.
Well, certainly people are very grateful, right, to the person behind the rescue operation, Elon Musk.
So
right? Thank you for doing this.
This is what I was getting at with I do think a lot of people watched it just in a more fragmented way than we would have watched it before because normally you would have watched it live on ABC or something, right?
Three networks.
So we don't do that anymore, but I'm sure the people watching the feed the number must have been insane.
Yeah.
People love this stuff. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not a super spacey person because of the
thing
aforementioned, but people love space exploration. They love this kind of thing. And I think it should have been, and to most normal people, was a moment of intense celebration. Like, how amazing that we can do this. Even if I'm not a space person, I'm a big fan of competence, and watching that happen so beautifully and watching them be recovered so beautifully, and that there was a problem, the problem was solved by someone, and they are safely home. How amazing. The thing that makes me sad for some people is like to not be able to enjoy that because you don't like the guy who owns SpaceX seems like a real lost opportunity to me.
Or perhaps even darkly, like hoping something bad happens because you hate him so much.
Yeah,
I hope that's not the case, but I wouldn't rule that out.
So the story of this, and we haven't covered it a lot on this podcast, but we've mentioned it here and there. You flagged it a while ago, and I said, wait, there's astronauts stuck in space.
Oh, right.
So these two astronauts went up in a Boeing Starliner, which is a competitive, a competitor to SpaceX in commercial spaceflight. They're experienced astronauts. They go up to the International Space Station. They're supposed to be there for 8 days, but the Starliner malfunctions on the way up. So a month. This was June. I think by August they had sent the Starliner back down to Earth with no astronauts in it, saying it's not. NASA had said it's not safe.
Although it had arrived intact, and it made you wonder, they could have probably taken the chances.
Well, and that's what Boeing says, trying to remain competitive, but they also launched it knowing that some of these problems existed. So they send that back down to Earth. NASA ain't sending anything up there to collect the astronauts. I think we're past the point where we depend on the government agency to do this. So there is one man who owns a space flight company who says, I can get them. So Elon Musk's SpaceX sends up a similar capsule in September of last year with 2 people on it. Those were the other 2 people you saw rescued, the cosmonaut and one other American astronaut. So they sent them up in September. They had 2 extra seats in that pod with them, in that capsule with them, so that they could bring them home.
Right.
The question is, why did it take from September to March?
September 2024?
Yes.
To March 2025?
There are some questions about why it took from September to March to bring that capsule back home. Now, the astronauts are very cool about it on camera. Yeah. They're like, we're happy to be up here. We're well taken care of. We understand that space travel comes with risks. We're cool. Elon Musk says, I offered to bring them home earlier. We had the capsule up there in September. Yeah. The Biden administration did not take me up on that offer and sort of stalled it, he says, for political reasons. Dun, dun, dun!
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard any pushback from that yet.
Well, so NASA says, I don't know who Elon talked to. He didn't talk to us higher ups, but I believe that Elon can get in touch with the higher ups at NASA. So I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
The astronauts themselves have said, look, it is a fact that this capsule's been here since September. And they were kind of they were just being gracious to everyone and sort of trying to be careful about how they talked about it. One of the astronauts' kids said on a TikTok, I'm not really at liberty to fully disclose what happened here, but they could have been home sooner.
Wow. Okay.
So those are the facts as we know them now.
Very interesting.
Intrigue. Elon continues to say, and Trump backs him up, that this was a Biden delay. NASA says there were budgetary and safety concerns that just happened to keep it from happening during the election, during which Elon Musk had endorsed the opposition to his party. But I imagine there might be some kind of FOIA-ing or congressional investigation there.
Could be if things haven't been destroyed or whatnot. Yeah. I don't know.
Dolphins will get to the bottom of this.
Dolphins, yes. They're very smart. And the water was like shimmering.
It was beautiful.
I do wonder what somebody like Arizona Senator Mark Kelly thinks. He is an astronaut himself and a Democratic senator who just sold his Tesla because he says that Elon is an a-hole. So, must be very mixed.
So Fox tricked me because I was watching and I saw Scott Kelly talking about it. Remember they're twins? And I thought it was Mark Kelly and it was not. But I do think that Mark and Scott Kelly are Team Boeing. So when you listen to their messaging about this, it might have something to do with that competitive situation. But very, very, very happy news that everyone got back safely. And I wish we had more moments like that were celebrated all together.
By everybody?
Right.
Barely by everybody.
I know. And there's just so few things that any of us all watch together anymore. The Super Bowl is basically it.
No, that's correct. This is it reminds me of Andy Ferguson's piece in the Weekend Beacon of his review of the Johnny Carson biography, because he said this guy was watched by, it's like 1 out of 4 households every night, or something like that. And it's because there were only 3 Yeah. He's a captive audience. He only had
the
networks.
Who Shot JR episode.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
the last episode of MASH. Right.
Number of people watched that episode. An important Trivial Pursuit question. Look it up if you don't know the answer, so you can win in the future. I won't spoil it for you because it's 1983. I was wearing that OP shirt while I was watching Who Shot JR.
That's you know what? But that's a good question because we were not a Dallas household. It was my mother watched Dynasty.
Oh, that's
and
another
their
good one.
version of that was the wedding massacre by the Moldovan terrorists.
Wow, Moldovan.
It was like it was a play on the name Moldavia, but it wasn't Moldavia. Yeah. Well, somebody will remember that one.
Who Shot JR was watched by 83 million people.
That is
a 76% share.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas is a great show. I have watched 11 of the seasons in their entirety.
Can you watch it now?
Yes. I watched it in my 20s before I had children and didn't know what to do with my time. And a friend of mine and I, back in the Netflix days when you would receive an actual DVD in the mail, we watched 11 seasons of Dallas together.
Wow.
And it is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
A masterpiece. Have you heard, by the way, that people, that there are other parts of the world that really like Dallas, partly because the family is an intergenerational family living under one roof, and it reflects, unlike
how they live with like grandparents and grandchildren in one house.
Unlike other American shows, it reflects
in
more.
In a state, it's a mansion. It's
Well, I mean, it's
okay.
South Fork.
Yeah. Oh,
not all the people watching are living on South Fork. Okay.
Yeah.
They had landlines by the pool. It was the height of luxury. You could take a call by the pool.
That's right.
In the stables, wherever you wanted.
That was
in the hot tub.
That was Texas, and Dynasty was Colorado. But also similarly,
Dynasty was Colorado.
Yeah, Carrington.
We were very
Colbys.
We were into like Western Rich then.
We were. Yeah. No, it was the 80s.
It's a good time.
I know.
Man. Okay. All right. Well, so that's that. What were we talking about?
I think we were going to transition to Tesla.
Okay, that's right.
Because of Elon.
So the same day that SpaceX rescues these astronauts. Mm-hmm. Now, there was a shift in media coverage of this story from stranded astronauts to like medium inconvenienced astronauts. Mm-hmm. They were like, this isn't strictly speaking a rescue mission. Well, but it is, because no one else could bring them home. So if not
for him, then who and when?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it was a rescue mission. Now, it's true that they were not in dire straits up there. They were on the International Space Station. They were taken care of. Yeah. They're in good health and in good spirits. But
you have to work out a lot up there because your muscles are not being used.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's why we can tell ourselves every day we don't work out that we're actually doing a workout, because gravity itself is a workout.
Down, just my wrinkles.
That's why they all fall apart up there. Yeah. You know? Can you imagine how hard it is for them to walk around today? Oof.
Yeah. That's right. It takes some time. Okay.
So, as I was saying, on the same day that they were rescued, and that Elon Musk and his team of competent engineers are responsible for this, we have Tim Walz, who is, I guess, in competition to make himself the leader of the Democratic Party. We'll play some Schumer clips later, who is also in competition for that. There's a handful of
He looks like he's in TED Talk mode.
Yeah. So Tim Walz is out, I believe, at the behest partly of David Hogg, who is the vice chair of the DNC.
Even better.
Who thinks that Tim Walz is like the key to reaching young men, because David Hogg also believes that David Hogg is the key to reaching young men. And so I don't think it's going to work. But Tim Walz was out, and he had this to say about Tesla while the day that this was happening. So Tesla is obviously his electric car company, but nonetheless, he has feelings about Elon Musk.
Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, and take out, just telling you.
He does look like he's doing a bit up there.
Yeah, and the voice is becoming like more raspier.
So sometimes Trump and his team are a little too obsessed with people saying thank you and being obsequious to them. This is an occasion where you can just safely say Thanks, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
We appreciate you getting those astronauts back down, but we're not going to take the opportunity to do that. We're going to take the opportunity to rejoice that the stock price of an American company is falling. Now,
not just any American company, an electric vehicle company trying to save the environment and in the struggle against fossil fuels.
Elon's like, I did the thing you guys want. I made a cool, high-performing electric car that everyone wants.
Operated on a battery.
I don't want one. I'm not into electric cars, but they are cool. And when they're not being set on fire, which is another thing that's happening.
Environmentally harmful.
By the way, Republicans in the past have been obnoxious about American companies that are coming under fire for the political moves of their owners, right? So like I've been annoyed with Costco or Target or Bud Light in the past. Now, I think if you're auditioning to be the head of the party or the head of the country, you probably should tread lightly when it comes to trashing these brands and hoping that they fail. I thought that the Bud Light incident was a helpful corrective and deterrent measure for the rest of the woke corporations to maybe stop with that nonsense.
Right. And with the exception of Kid Rock shooting up the cans, and they're just cans of beer. These are not electric vehicles causing very dangerous battery fires, which are very hard to put out.
Yeah. So
other than that, people just said, I'm not going to drink it.
If people were setting fire to Target because of the trans-inclusive clothing lines they use.
Would it be okay?
Would it be okay to talk about how we should punish Target on the stock market?
Yeah.
The truth is that their political violence is just considered kind of like, romantic, justifiable, kind of cool and edgy, just as it was in 2020.
Right.
In 2020, if you took over a courthouse or burned it down, hey.
Right.
How else are the people supposed to respond, okay? How else are they supposed to have a redress of their grievances?
In those fiery but mostly peaceful protests.
Fiery, mostly peaceful.
And again, it was okay even though COVID was around. But it's, there's something more powerful than COVID, and that's racism.
Yeah.
So there is an irony to the attacks on Teslas. First of all, Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi are calling this domestic terrorism. That's the first thing. The second thing is the irony is conservatives are generally against electric vehicles and that their regular combustion engine cars are much more reasonable. There are a lot of concerns where batteries come from. It's not entirely an environmentally clean operation because you have to get, things like graphite and cobalt and everything else from mines. And if you're not getting it from here, you're getting it from China. And so generally, I tend to think that conservatives are not big Tesla drivers. It's actually people on the left, and they've been doing it, obviously, before Elon Musk started Doge.
It's also the more affluent party, so they have the money to buy Teslas.
And so the attacks really are on themselves, which is strange. And people say they're afraid to drive it around now.
Well, that's why they're doing it to the dealerships. Where, by the way, like so many people are either outright applauding it or winking and nudging about it. Jimmy Kimmel had one thrown away line in one of his monologues, which just made very clear that he wasn't against it.
Right.
Like it is a real.
They're also saying
display.
March 29 is going to be apparently a big anti-Tesla protest day at dealerships and charging stations. So
great. I'm sure. Again,
taking the high road.
By the way. I don't know if this is the kind of thing where you can get domestic terrorism charges and actually make that stick, but this is ideologically motivated vandalism on expensive pieces of personal property. That seems like the definition. That's right. By the way, with the idea of deterring people from buying Teslas in the future because you might get your car torched, right? So
this is the hope. So what do you have to go get a Rivian? Which I don't think they're. The Rivian
they look pretty good. Electric trucks though for hauling,
you can't do that. Same thing with electric school buses that go on fire. I mean, they had and there are these companies in North Carolina and elsewhere. The Beacons reported on this.
You've reminded me of another COVID era moment that made me very angry, which is one of my local school board members in I want to say February of 2021, before anybody was back in school, wrote a Medium post congratulating himself and the board for getting a fleet of electric buses for the schools to which no students were going.
Yeah.
There were no students on the buses. There were no students on schools. But he was like, look what we got with our money from the federal government that Randy Weingarten squeezed out of them.
Virtue,
I'm fine.
I'm fine. There's no price on virtue signaling. You can't put a price on it.
Can't put a price on it. No. But it does strike me that to normal people who I do think can have bad reactions to Doge or to Trump and the sort of like, hey, we want you to do this carefully, or be careful what you're cutting, be careful who you're firing. Right. There are people who will react badly to that who are normies, right?
Yeah.
I think they have more tolerance than the Washington media, obviously, or the class that is employed by the federal government. I think they can have bad reactions to that. However, if the contrast remains Elon Musk, quirky, sometimes shitposty industrialist tech guy who saves astronauts from actual space and brings them back to home in triumphant fashion to dolphin greeting, versus Tim Wall's TED Talk about tanking Tesla's stock. Did you hear the alliteration in that? I am a poet.
Really good. This is a Thursday special for you. Friday, really. Hello, Friday. Jasmine Crockett.
It's because I'm wearing this outfit from the 90s.
From the 90s. As eloquent as Chris Cross.
If that's the contrast, then that's wiggity, wiggity, whack is what I'm saying.
Oh, wow. Listen to that. You know what? I'm so out of it, though. Never mind. I'm not even going to make a joke. Not going to make a joke. I'm going to say Jasmine Crockett, by the way, also on that particular bandwagon, saying it's like best birthday present ever is.
Oh, come on.
Sort of demise of Tesla. He doesn't own all the stock, by the way. No, this is a misunderstanding. There are a lot of people.
There was a great moment where people started to point out to Walls that the state's employment pensions are heavily invested in Tesla.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the very thing that actually will pay his retirement, because he has
that's good.
He's famously said he does not own stocks because he's going to get all of his stuff from a government pension courtesy of us. They're invested in Tesla, so maybe like rooting for Tesla to go down.
No, I mean,
in flames metaphorically and physically is not good.
If Gavin Newsom has his way and that there's going to be a forced sort of mandate for electric vehicles by 2035 or 2020, whatever the year is, Tesla would be the biggest beneficiary of that, thanks to Gavin Newsom.
Over my dead body, by the way. Yeah. Over my dead body. I'm going to have a choice. I'm going to have a 1985 Ford Bronco from my cold dead hands. A dumb car full of gas.
Which, by the way, then you can fix yourself without, I mean, this is the big thing now. Everything is so computerized.
You can't tinker.
Yeah.
You can't wrench on your own car. No. I used to change my own oil in college. Yeah.
I am not going to comment because I'm not saying that I can or can't change the oil, but I have, I can change a tire.
Yeah, I had a
I had a
Honda
Civic. Turnpike.
I had a Honda Civic in college. And it had no air conditioning, so there was a lot of room to work in that car because there was no air conditioning compressor unit in there. So there's plenty of room to get in there. Yeah. And I was a cheapskate, and I could change my own oil. So I did so on my driveway.
Is that an all-day affair? I imagine it takes some time to drain everything.
No.
But no.
It's just like less than an hour, I would say.
My brother-in-law taught my son how to change oil, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Maybe one day he'll teach me.
Able to... I was listening to a podcast the other day with 4 men and 1 woman on it, and 1 person knew how to change a tire.
Wow.
1 of 5. That is... And they were all like in their late 30s, early 40s.
Oh, okay. So young. Even closer. Not kids. No, there's not an adulting problem. No, these are adults.
You gotta learn to change a tire, people. Yeah. Not the oil. You don't have to worry about the oil. It's too hard to get in there anyway nowadays. But
I was driving a Mitsubishi Montero, and I had just driven over the Millard Tidings Bridge on 95 in Maryland, and I don't pay attention to my balding tires, and it blew. So it was in a flat tire. It blew, and immediately the car just lurched right to the right lane. Amazingly, there was no car in the right lane at that very moment, and just, and then, well, the equipment I had was not able to okay, fine. A little amendment to the story. I had to call AAA because I've just realized, I'm remembering the story now. It was in the 90s. the jack that they gave you was not big enough for the Jeep.
You can't use the toothpick jack.
No,
you got
it's
to have
like
a separate jack.
For that. Look, I was a high up car.
People are learning a lot of things outside the topics we're talking about today. You can't use the toothpick jack that they send you with the car. You got to have a separate one, particularly for women. Yes, women and men are different. There's going to be a strength issue with the jack and with the lug nuts if you're not careful, if you don't have the proper tools. Okay, if you got a little tiny thing for your, what was it called? You got a little tiny wrench for your lug nut.
The one I had was like a toothpick and it was perilous.
No, that's not going to work. You got to have something else. And I do long for the days now that maybe I'll get this opportunity. Now that 3 of 4 men on this podcast couldn't change a tire, maybe I can pull up to somebody and be like, "You need some help, sweetie?"
Yeah, you'll be like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, just changing the tires of the old ladies while they're in the car.
Anyway, okay.
I love the second episodes of the week because it's so freewheeling.
Do we think Chuck Schumer knows how to change a tire?
Hey.
That man can't even drive, can he? Because he's a New Yorker. Chuck Schumer was on The View this week. Yes. And again, I think that Trump runs risks by doing the tariff stuff, possibly raising prices, although the inflation news has been good for him. He's sort of on thin ice with people, depending whether he gets the tax cut extensions passed and makes progress on many things. However, this is the pitch he's up against. Are you ready for Chuck? Chuck is trying to clean up a mess he made with liberals by saying he was going to fight the CR that they approved and wrote back in November and December.
When the other guy was president.
And then when he realized that was a bad idea, he got in trouble with the libs. So he goes on The View, and here's what he has to say.
You know what their attitude is? I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes. Or, I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how I should treat my customers, the land and water that I own, or my employees? They hate government. Government's a barrier to people, a barrier to stop them from doing things. They want to destroy it. We are not letting them do it, and we're united.
I don't know why they were musicking him off.
Yes.
Were they musicking him off?
That was either music coming from The View or from MRC. But,
it was from that clip. So
odd. Yeah, all the clips have the music. So
regardless.
They were like, okay, no, this is not playing well. We need to go to commercial. That's what they were saying.
As our friend Michael Duncan, who is on the Ruthless podcast, said, if my whole thing was taking people's tax money and using it to pay for the stuff I want to pay for, I think I'd have a better elevator pitch than this.
Yes. I actually heard the clip and I thought he was trying to be sympathetic and explaining the mentality of people on the other side and trying to understand how they think. And then I realized, no,
he's just attacking them.
Yeah, he's castigating them for having this idea of how dare you want to keep your hard-earned money? Shouldn't we be you can't tell us how much money we can take from you. The harder you work or the more you earn, we will take more.
Has Chuck Schumer ever worked a regular job outside of politics? I'm going to check his Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, before he was a senator, he was obviously a congressman from New York.
Okay.
And
I don't think that counts as normal.
That,
it looks like he got his JD at Harvard. Smart guy, 1,600 on the SAT.
Wow.
Got his JD at Harvard in 1974, and then ran for and was elected to New York State Assembly. So basically,
so went right for it.
Here we go. I think
it's a bizarre world they live in. Though,
when you have not ever built a business or had a hand in building a business, perhaps you should hush about the money that is rightfully the people's who built the business. And again, the contrast is Elon Musk and Republicans in favor of building things, we in favor of taking the things they built and also setting them on fire.
Yes.
I don't think it's a good contrast.
So Schumer has to lean particularly left these days because that storm hasn't blown over of his support for the continuing resolution, right? And he said, I knew this was going to happen and these things happen and we all get along. 2 congressmen in counting have now posted or put up a petition saying that they want him gone. And
they're
waiting.
From the Senate?
Gone
from
the leadership.
Okay.
Gone from the leadership, and they're waiting for others. Other Democratic congressmen apparently have said, "Well, we support it too. We just haven't been asked yet." And there is a petition that is signed by at least 25,000 people, liberals, left-leaning people who are saying that they're not going to donate until he's no longer the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. And so those 2 congressmen, by the way, it's Delia Ramirez and Glenn Ivey. And so they're leading this charge. So it's actually something that is happening.
Yeah. Well, and they want AOC to primary him.
Yeah. So speaking of The View, Sunny Hostin, and she was talking about the future of the Democratic Party, and they're going after Schumer in a weirdly sort of either he's too soft or he is too old.
Right.
And so who do they mention? AOC, and they mention Al Green. He's a little bit on the old side, I would say. And of course, also, they mentioned Jasmine Crockett.
I can think of a person
as the future
who was old, that if you had made that call a little earlier, things would have turned out better for you guys.
Yeah.
His name was Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Joe Biden.
That's right.
Should have clocked that a little earlier.
Don Lemon was on Bill Maher's after show.
I saw that. Yeah.
I like that after show. I feel
that's his podcast. Yeah.
Oh, it's the
reason is because you're getting high watching the after show. Like just from the
I can see what's going on.
It's
and
a contact high
chill.
from the podcast.
And so I assume Don Lemon is speaking from his heart, and he said that no, I mean the people he talks to, they say that who they all really want, a majority of Democrats, is AOC or Jasmine Crockett. And Bill Maher goes, that can't be true. And he's like, oh, no.
Well, it's
good luck with that.
It's the sliver of the party that Don Lemon hangs out with.
Yeah.
Which some Democrats have been reckoning with the oversized influence that part of the party has on the party, because the problem is, who does Don Lemon hang out with? Extremely liberal, extremely rich, probably a lot of white ladies. And the college-educated white ladies are the most liberal, and most out of touch with the rest of the electorate. There was Steve Kornacki was noting it, that white women who are college-educated plus are like negative 40 points on Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, Doge, and the Republican Party.
Wow.
They are plus 53 on Zelensky.
Okay.
They are plus 31 on DEI, and they are about even, a tiny bit underwater on the Democratic Party. Tiny bit negative on the Democratic Party.
Because they're not going far left enough.
Everyone else is even or above water when it comes to all of those people. Or reversed to the foreign guy isn't their number one interest. Like, isn't that weird? Zelensky and DEI are your top things, and I think this goes to the point of you can't put a price on signaling.
No,
Zelensky and DEI are how you signal.
That's it. That's how you.
I am a good upper middle class to affluent white lady. Yeah, that's how I say that.
A faithful progressive.
Also, I love all the people that Don Lemon says that I should love.
Yeah, right.
And when those people shape messaging, when Jasmine Crockett shapes messaging, when Don Lemon shapes messaging, you will not reach male voters, working class voters, non-college educated voters, and
David Hogg notwithstanding.
And they really have not learned that lesson.
No, and it's amazing because we're going into 2026 now. I mean, the House is going to be a close run thing, I think, but certainly in the Senate, Republicans technically would have more to lose, but the Democrats are now the ones on the defensive here.
Yeah.
You have a number of Democrats who are not seeking re-election. I think that the Republicans will hold fast regardless of what happens in the Trump administration.
Yeah, the retirement door is interesting to watch, because I tend to be a little bit more pessimistic about Republicans' chances in a midterm, because I'm like,
traditionally it's true.
Particularly in the off year in Virginia, you're probably going to have some losses here because Virginia is very affected by federal government cuts, if there are any. So that might sort of distort people's view of where we are. I do think that Trump faces significant challenges when it comes to messaging cutting things. Like there are parts of this where Democrats can either lie or make hay out of something that isn't really even necessarily hurting people, but sounds very bad to people. Yeah. So I think there are vulnerabilities there, but some of their behavior makes me think, how much vulnerability?
Right. I think the Democrats are probably going to have a better 2025 than 2026. Now, there's only a handful of elections in 2025.
Yeah, New Jersey and
the New Jersey
Virginia.
governors, Virginia's, and mayor of New York, and there's I think a couple other places. I'm already seeing the Abigail Spanberger signs, and she's going to be going up against Winsome Sears. I have a question for you, Mary Katharine. Yes. If you don't support Winsome Sears, that makes you a racist, yes?
Well, no, because she's a Republican, so it doesn't count.
Oh,
yeah.
I forgot about
Sorry.
that. Okay.
First, the highest ranking black female elected in Virginia history.
Who served this country in the
Not
military
important,
too.
guys.
Yeah.
Oh, a Marine as well. Yes. Yeah. By the way, Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson's an Atlantic writer. Ezra Klein, founder of Vox, and sort of generally has always been thought of as a liberal thought leader. And like, I don't know if this is a black mark on my name or his. He sounds like me these days. He's like, hey, you know, all these places where liberals have consolidated control, they're not delivering good governance or products to the people they claim to want to help. And I'm like, So I live in fear of the day that the Democratic Party listens to Ezra Klein. The problem for them, I think, is that if the state is your only vehicle for delivering,
that's right,
the goods and the good governance and the good products, and you're not willing to look to, I don't know, Elon Musk who rescues the astronauts from space, like, I don't think you're going to improve your record very fast.
You're missing something. Again, you're going to make yourself feel better from a position of the hard left, but with independents and Republicans, that's not going on.
Speaking of Trump vulnerabilities, I just want to note that there remain, if my count is correct, and it probably changes all the time, but I've been following Margot Cleveland, who writes for The Federalist, and she is like eagle eyes on the various lawsuits.
Okay.
And she has in her pieces about this counted 11 lawsuits challenging the funding freezes and terminations, and then another 5 specifically on firing executive officials and the president's power to do that. So that's 16 lawsuits running their way through these courts, and there's
more against him than previous presidents.
Oh, and there are motions and appeals and all sorts of things happening every day. It's very hard to keep track of. The Venezuelan alleged criminal aliens who were sent to El Salvador that we've talked about, and whether they should have had a hearing before doing that. I do think the courts are the right way to address that if there's a due process issue there. Yeah. If, heaven forfend, you sent somebody you didn't mean to send, right? Like there needs to be a remedy for that.
That would be quite a story.
But yeah, this is all running through the courts fairly quickly. It seems like Boasberg, who's the guy who issued the initial order to turn the plane around and then was mad at the Trump administration for looking like, or maybe not listening to that order. That's been like through 3 more iterations since then. And they're now having an oral argument on Monday about it.
Okay. I would take the side of the Trump administration on this in terms of the international airspace argument. If the decision by Boasberg had been handed down as the plane was already in flight.
Right.
Wi-Fi is terrible on airplanes, as you know, Mary Catherine. I try it myself, and it's like totally hit and miss.
Nobody wanted to
I want my money back from United.
Nobody was a T-Mobile customer?
No. It's again, you have to be T-Mobile. Yeah. And I don't think the federal government was, and next thing you know, they're in that Salvadoran prison. And which, by the way, he did. So Bukele, who is the president of El Salvador, he received, I believe, $6 million to take in these 261 migrants.
Yes.
I somehow think he didn't spend the $6 million to expand the facility.
No, I would doubt it.
I think they just crammed them all in there, cheek by jowl, so to speak.
There has been some backlash against the judges from the right.
Yeah.
Because these things are coming quickly, and it does seem unfair.
Sure.
When you're faced with all these, all this lawfare,
it's lawfare.
It seems like it's sometimes, according to the courts, illegal to cut government. It is only legal to expand government, right? Because right now a federal judge has said you can't even fire probationary employees.
Right.
I don't know if the judge looked up the definition of probationary, but that's what that means, is that you can fire them.
So, no, but if they could just tie it up in a court somewhere in this country, I mean, this is what's happening, where these things are being filed in areas that are going to be sympathetic with other probably Democratic appointed judges, then you're going to slow everything down. You just mentioned this. It's not just these, migrants. It's not just Tren de Aragua. We're also talking about USAID. I mean, everything has just come to a,
Our friend Hugh Hewitt has written at foxnews.com about this, saying like,
he's a lawyer.
This is the process. Mm-hmm. He's been attacked by others who say he's like standing up for the ruling class. There is some of this that's unfair and frustrating. But I tend to side with him when it's like the proper thing is the appeals process. You can get these things moved more quickly than if you were a normie stuck in the court system.
Right.
He says many federal district court judges are issuing imprudent and obviously politicized decisions to block early actions by President Trump and his team on many fronts, even though Trump ran on a very specific agenda and won an overwhelming victory. The judges, of course, will say they don't care about elections, but about the law and the Constitution. But it sure feels like the resistance in robes. Some rulings are so wrong that even their beneficiaries give up before higher courts return to their cases, e.g. Special Counsel Hampton Dellinger, who was appointed to be the obscure post in the vast civil service bureaucracy during the late Biden regency and was confirmed in the job in February of last year. Trump fired Dellinger, and it is settled law that it's Trump's right to do just that. But Dellinger made a play for a district court order preventing the firing and got one from a U.S. District Judge, Amy Berman Jackson in D.C. Then he was like, when he had to go hire and face somebody who might not make that decision, he was like, never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. So that's just a bad decision, Hugh says, squarely contrary to longstanding precedent, and the ruling would have been reversed on appeal, but Dellinger must have figured that out, and he and his judge would in fact get scorched on appeal, so he quit mooting the case. So Hugh argues that going through that process is what the Trump administration must do. And I tend to lean that way, one, because I do find it frustrating, and it's frustrating to many normies, understandably, that like we voted for this and then all these people who don't really have authority and that we didn't vote for and sometimes are overstepping their authority genuinely say you can't have those things you voted for, at which point they're trying to get Trump to like 2 years into his presidency where he's more lame ducky and can't do the things he wants to do. Yeah. It is very frustrating. I also want to have faith in like one branch of government. So.
He, at least at the very least, Mary Katharine, on the Laura Ingram's show, he was firm, at least for now, that he is not refuting or ignoring any court orders beginning now. No, I'm just so I mean there is that, but the question is, can you at all criticize a judge for a bad ruling, or is that not allowed? Is it like when you criticize a referee in the
and we've also gotten to
NPA
a point,
or in the NFL, and then you get fined for that? You know?
We've also gotten to the point where the bureaucratic civil service is asserting itself as an equal branch of government, right? That is not how the founders envisioned this. And yes, you should be able to fire those people. You should be able to get rid of some of them. You should be able to cut various parts of the executive branch that are under the power of the executive. But these courts are basically saying, they do exercise power over the president's authority. Yeah. Not the courts themselves, but the actual bureaucracies.
And as we knew going into this, of course, it is very hard to just outright fire a federal employee. It's not like an at-will situation in the private sector. Right.
It's much different. Okay, can you give me a brief JFA? JFA. I can't even say it. JFK update.
Yes.
I do not care about this very much at all. I'm sorry. I did go to Dallas one time and I did visit
go to the
site.
school book depository, and you were not left with questions about how did this happen and how is it that Lee Harvey Oswald was able to take the shot when other people said he was downstairs at the time? Or why would he have a Coke after he shot the president?
Wait.
Yeah.
Are you saying there's a wrong time to have a Coke?
Woo! I just killed the president. Man, I could use a Coke right now.
Okay. So this is one of those things that I kid you not, as a sometime casual student of American history and an interest in presidential politics and all of these things, it's been on my to-do list since I was like 10 to figure out what the conspiracy theorists think and what is real. But like, it just is going to take so much work and you're going to go down the rabbit hole. And then what if I become a conspiracy theorist? And my brand is kind of that, like, I only believe like medium conspiracy theories, right? So I think my brain has just been like, I think the commie who came back from the Soviet Union, Lee Harvey Oswald, probably shot the president because the president didn't like commies because he was a different kind of Democrat.
Sure. There was a cab driver.
That's my theory.
There was a cab driver who insisted to the FBI that he had driven around Lee Harvey Oswald at a time where they said it was impossible because he was already working at the school book depository, and he maintained that no, it was really him, and Hoover had him committed to an insane asylum. That's true. I don't have answers. I only have questions, Mary Katharine. I don't have answers. So I was more like,
I guess I better update my to-do list, put it on there again.
The worst thing you can do is like watch Oliver Stone's JFK, which is a magnificent work of cinema, and then say, oh my gosh, LBJ did it. Okay. So no, that's the worst thing that you can do.
That's a great example of like, good art.
Yeah, which is what Roger Stone believes, by the way.
And the danger of knowing just enough to get yourself in trouble. That's what I didn't want to do.
No, and there are a lot of people who don't know, and young people, and they go in, they see this movie, and they go, "Oh my gosh, that's how it worked." With Donald Sutherland as General X or whatever. No, but there are a lot of weird things. And so far, I haven't seen anything out of these 60,000 pages. And people are like, oh my gosh, I just discovered this and that. A lot of these things are just redactions that have been lifted, but not new news. It's not like we know these things.
Right. See, I'm not deep enough in the weeds to know what we know and don't know. And a lot of people are just tweeting JFK files
it's
wow,
silly.
Look at this.
No.
And getting a lot of Elon bucks out of it.
That's right. So what I would do is if I had access in one giant document of the files, and you could do a word search, just type out the people who you're curious about, and then you can eliminate them from your list of suspects about what's their story or what's James Wheeler Powell at the School Book Depository. He was also at the School Depository at the same time as Lee Harvey Oswald.
Okay.
And according to Warren Commission, he's military intelligence, and they just let him go. Like, what are you doing here? Oh, I wanted to get a good, look at the motorcade. Okay, see you later.
Bye.
But no, most conspiracy theorists will say that he is not a suspect, but he just happened to be at the wrong place at the right time. So that's weird. Another really interesting person is Bonnie Ray Williams, and he was Lee Harvey Oswald's coworker. And there's a lot of confusion over people saying around 12:30, whenever it happened, that Lee Harvey Oswald was downstairs having lunch, or where he was upstairs.
Right.
It has to do with the elevator, because you have to bring the elevator up.
Right.
The weirdest thing about this is Bonnie Ray Williams says he was having his fried chicken lunch, and he's being grilled by the Warren Commission, including Dulles and Ball.
Right.
And they ask him specifically about the fried chicken, and he said it was a bone-in fried chicken sandwich. And Ball is like, so it's bone-in, but between two slices of bread? He's like, yes. It's like, who would eat that?
Now I really do have questions.
That is the greatest conspiracy of all time, if you ask me. Who would eat a bone-in fried chicken sandwich?
That is very weird. It's very weird.
So I'm not saying I'm crazy. I'm just saying questions. And I'll tell you this one last thing.
Okay.
The second time I went to the School Book Depository thinking like, oh, you can't, making the shot. In JFK's, in the movie JFK, they talk about, he shot as a clear line of view going away, but it's a Texas live oak, so it doesn't shed its leaves at that time, so he had to shoot through the foliage. You look at it and you look at the angle. Yeah, I think he could make that shot. Yeah. Because here's the other thing, like, why didn't they shoot him down Houston instead of Elm? I think it's easier, and I think your husband would agree with this. He's an expert on such things. Is if you miss a target, it's easier to lift your gun and shoot it a second or a third time, versus if it's coming at you, then you have to sort of readjust and what's going to happen there. So I'm just saying.
Now I have more questions. If only one of the seasons of Dallas had been dedicated to this, I'd have the answers by now.
Okay. Sorry.
The one thing that I actually learned this only a few years ago in studying the political violence of our friends on the left, that at the time of the shooting, the media sort of massaged the commie facts about Lee Harvey Oswald out of it. And they attributed the shooting to a sort of generalized right-wing stew of hatred in Dallas. One of the worst things ever, yeah. When actually it was just a guy who had lived in the USSR on purpose.
That's correct.
And then come back home to shoot somebody. Yeah. Which that's it goes back real far, the whole political violence on the left being whitewashed by the press.
Right, because Texas hated Kennedy.
Yep.
And therefore the guy who shoots him must be. Yeah. But of course he was a Soviet defector.
Yeah.
Okay.
That stuff still happens. So anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to talk about Harry Sisson briefly.
Let's do it.
Do you guys remember Harry Sisson? He is an influencer. In fact, we can find one clip of him just talking about how Biden was the greatest man who ever lived.
So what's the conclusion from the debate? What's the takeaway? Well, the conclusion is you may not love Joe Biden, you may not like him, you may not enjoy voting for him, but he's a lot better than Donald Trump. His policy is a lot more pragmatic. Donald Trump is a bad man who wants to do bad things. That's the conclusion.
He was the one guy, I think, who thought Biden won the debate. He's a paid influencer.
He's the one guy.
For the Democrats.
Yeah.
During 2024, he's like 19, 20. He's a young guy.
He's now, I think, 22 or something.
So TikTok dude, young dude. This was one of their
kid.
one of their plays to get to the young men, which didn't work, by the way. The numbers for the young men are terrible for the left. But Harry Sisson, of course, professes to be a male feminist. He's a liberal. He's very respectful of women. He loves women, just as all Democrats do. Mm-hmm.
But there were some.
But he also really loves women.
Yes. No. I was going to say, but there were people. He was being taunted. Online for like saying that he's gay
for having a different sexual preference. Right. Yes, but it turns out he's just he might be just a dog. He's a dog.
What happened?
Some ladies who Harry Sisson apparently was talking to on TikTok and Snapchat and other social medias. And this is the risk that not just public figures run, but everybody who interacts online runs, because you're handing people receipts, right?
Yeah.
And then those people can get in touch with each other because they can see the digital footprint of you liking someone's story or you watching someone's videos. And they get together. And it looks like about 11 women got together and realized, after one person told a story, that Harry Sisson had been talking to all of them at the same time, and Snapchatting with them and talking on the phone with them, doing whatever it is the kids do these days. And I listened to and they're all saying look, we were victims of this guy and he's terrible. And here, look, I'm on board with them telling everybody he's terrible. Like, buyer beware. This male feminist is a player.
Right.
He's not treating you right. Just know that this is how he treated everybody.
And send me your nudes.
Right. So I listened to this one girl's story of their relationship, and it was 5 to 8 minutes long of explanation. She's like, for 9 months he lied to me, and I was like, man, that is rough. I feel bad that you went through this. It sounds like he was very dishonest with you and made you believe that you had a relationship, and you're sending him things that are private. And then she gets to the end and she's like, I am so glad I figured this out before I ever met him.
Sorry, I'm the laugh. No, that's right. That's right.
This is not a comment on the moral compass of Harry Sisson.
Yeah.
Who has proven once again that the male feminist line is a line, girls. It's a line.
It's like the bizarro version of the Andrew Dice Clay joke about how, he was, dating this girl hot and heavy. He gets into all the graphic details in his bit. And then he says, 2 weeks later, we're laying in bed and I finally popped the question. So, what's your name? Okay. So anyway, it's like that, but the reverse. It's the opposite of that. They haven't even met? What?
So, again, this is not a comment on Harry Sisson's morality. He seems like a bad dude. You're not in a relationship with someone that you haven't met for 9 months.
Yeah.
Much less an exclusive relationship. So I want to tell the ladies, insist on meeting your man in real life.
Yeah.
Step one.
That's a good step one.
I know I sound like an old grandma in my 1992 outfit, but let me tell you.
Yeah.
Meet him in real life. Go on dates.
Yeah.
Lessen the possibility that you might get played by this person because you can vet him more easily in that way. It doesn't guarantee it, but it's going to give you a better chance. And don't send the snaps. Don't send the snaps till you've met somebody. And I would argue maybe not after that.
Don't send the snaps. Anybody, it's very dangerous. Okay, so that's great advice, Mary Katharine. The second thing is, of course, Sisson seems to have fallen for some weird fishing trap, because if he's being accused of not being heterosexual, shall we say, right? He sends out a video or an Instagram, whatever, with his girlfriend who is concealing her face.
Yes, they call that a soft launch on the socials media. Yes,
interesting.
Soft launch, where you don't really reveal the identity of the person, but you're in a relationship.
Yes, she's with the hands at home. She's giving the finger, to the camera.
Haters.
What?
To the haters.
To the haters, right? And so as a result of that, then the other women say, wait a minute, who is this woman that he's in a relationship with when he's been hitting on me all this time?
Yeah.
But just to be clear, no crime has been committed. It's just it's just exposing him as being fairly.
Yes. No, I actually think calling them victims is silly. You're and colloquially you're like a victim of lying, but he's just unless he's done something with your material that is revenge porn level of activity, then no. But when she told me she hadn't met him for 9 months, I was like, oh dear.
No, that's like the punchline of a bad joke or like on a sitcom.
I also will say he immediately, of course, started calling all of them crazy, even though they have receipts, which is not a very respectful of women tack to take, Harry. Mm-hmm. He starts calling them crazy, but I gotta say, his taste in women is sort of like brunette and sweet and a little bookish. They don't look crazy. They don't sound crazy. Mm-hmm. They all sound very rational. But I would just say, meet the man in person, everyone.
Okay.
That's just
good.
That's advice from the 90s.
Thank you. On that note, that wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I'm at MK Hammer on X, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube and Instagram. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast. Don't snap Harry Sisson.